Perhaps it was foolish of me to think that we could hide away forever.
Very excited to be chatting with you, Titus, again for this time for Abraham's Boys. I got to say, this is such a wonderful twist on not just this character, but the Dracula lore as a whole. I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, this is not the same sort of theatrical version, let's say, of Abraham that we've seen in the past. So what was it like really finding your version and working with Natasha and Joe to find this version?
Well, I think the character, look, we've seen many different iterations of Van Helsing before. And, Joe's story really, fleshes that character out in a different way. I mean, it's a very original, still maintaining the integrity of the character that Stoker created, but it's just a very, very different take on it to a certain degree, because it's a much more psychological evaluation, right? You're not sure. It reminded me a great deal of the Polanski film, The Tenant. You're not sure if he's, descending into madness or if all this stuff is going on, because all evidence points toward it. And there's a kind of stoicism about him. He's oddly unflappable and doesn't have a tremendous amount of affect. And it just seems like a man who, the Van Helsing that we know, who is dogged in his pursuit to rid the earth of these evil creatures. Natasha's adaptation, the script is, she's an inordinately talented writer and director. I was really blown away by, her adaptation. I thought she really nailed it and brought nuance and grace notes to the characters that made it some really great stuff to act. And also her vision for the film, it's very kind of it sort of contradicts itself. Typically in vampire things, there's it's not a lot of bucolic, flowing fields, this landscape that is bright and beautiful and juxtaposed to the interior of the house, and incredibly well realized. So she just kind of threw up this canvas with a cinematographer, and we got to kind of live in it.
I love the way, since you mentioned it, the way that the California desert just really acts as sort of this interesting contrast to just the vampire world in general. And I'd love to hear, since you mentioned the house being lit the way it is, it feels like it could be its own character in a sense. How much did you find that just the location alone really helped infuse and vitalize your performance throughout the piece?
Well, it's very isolating. Where we shot, it was in Simi Valley, and it's where they used to shoot Little House on the Prairie. So, and there weren't a lot of vampires on that show. So the house itself, is of the period. It has a very, once again, the art direction, the way the interior of it was dressed. The art direction was really beautiful, but you have this house that's perched on this hill, which has this sort of almost militaristic kind of 360-degree view. So and you can come in and you can come out, yet that which you see in the landscape is something that's beautiful. And that's where we shot everything, with the exception of the graveyard and the sort of final confrontation. Everything was right there within a square mile, and it was about 100 10 to 115 degrees in the shade there, and we're all in period wool clothing. And we actually had to evacuate because there were fires one day. But it was a marvelous crew. And, we shot this in a very short time. We did not have a gigantic, Hollywood budget on the film. But if you look at this film, it's they just know what they're doing, and it was just sort of, look, it's always great to have more money to do X, Y, and Z. But this film did not call for, we didn't have to do any green screen stuff. We didn't have to, there were no elaborate prosthetic makeups. And I just think it's a much more thought-provoking and psychological take on that world. It's a sort of a combination of, of paranoia, and then real-time action. Mina is clearly unwell, and his struggle, and the boys are sort of just, what's going on? It's kind of like, and Abraham is not, he entrusts his eldest son with this information and enlists his aid. But ultimately, you're anticipating that there's going to be some sort of a siege on the house. So it also has a little bit of the Romero Night of the Living Dead aspect to it, but all with this, beautiful backdrop of the rolling hills.
Yeah, having enjoyed Natasha's work on Lucky, it's amazing what she can do with so little. And she just absolutely, like you say, she made such great use of this space, along with the psychological nature of this story. And now you talk about the boys, and I did want to ask, that is, as the title suggests, that is a big part, big core of this story. And I'd love to hear what it was like, working with Brady and working with Judah to really find these dynamics, since they're really that sort of emotional driving force for the film.
Well, they're both very, very talented actors, and eager to learn. And so they were very, Brady, both of them have obviously had worked before, but they were incredibly well cast. And we didn't have the luxury of rehearsal to try to create these relationships. But I think that which is established on the page is that this is, Abraham is not a guy who's, overly demonstrative. He's not the poster child for, touchy-feely parenting. But the boys, they had the responsibility of being the point of view of the audience. And that's very, very tricky stuff to act, because you can't hit it on the nose. And, if had they been less experienced and then, you might have had issues with that, but they both stepped up to the plate. They worked extremely hard. Those boys are going to do very, very well. And they have. Look, I became aware of Brady from The Leftovers, and I thought he was marvelous in that. So our bond was really formed, in real time on the set, in between takes, and they were lovely to work with, and I think their performances are really, really super strong, as is everyone. Jocelin she's great. She's always great. And Johnny, we have that one great scene together, and Aurora Perrineau, she's like family for me. Her father and I are extremely close friends. So I've known Aurora since she was a little girl, and to suddenly be acting, across the table from her, it was exciting. It was exciting. And Natasha is look, she's a really substantive, smart director. Very, very bright. And her direction, she's kind of like Orson Welles in that thing of, I've hired you to do this thing, and I'm here to facilitate that what you need, but I trust you to do your work. And it was those films are run and gun, and it was a very, very wonderful set. It was a great crew. And believe me, they worked their asses off. There were days that were really brutal just because of the heat and us being so far away from everything, and equipment. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, sometimes things go awry. But she's unflappable. I never saw that woman get agitated or lose her temper in any way. And she's just a great leader and a wonderful, wonderful director. And I think a director, I know that I feel like this film is a massive spring forward for her. She has an incredible eye, a real sense of the visual aspect, which is everything in that medium. And yet she knows how to give very, very specific directions. So she's incredibly good with the boys. And it was just she has a kind of shepherd's touch of just sort of, realigning. I can't say enough good things about her. I look forward to making many more films with her, because she, pound for pound, I have to say, and I've worked with a lot of really great and big directors, and she's right up there with them.
Well, I love hearing that. Sounds like a true dream collaborative experience for you, both in front of and behind the camera. And I hope that you get the opportunity to work with her again. I see I've got to wrap up, so I will get on out of here. But Titus, always great getting to chat with you. I can't wait to get the word out about this film, because everybody just killed it, and people need to give this one a watch.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very proud of this film, and I feel like it's going to find an audience, and will definitely have its own kind of cult sort of fan base thing. So as always, I thank you, because Screen Rant has been incredibly good to me over the years, and the love is mutual, brother. So I thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The love will remain mutual, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, man.
I've known for a long time that it might come.